Hi, it's me, Chris Harder, and welcome back to Showboys, the podcast bringing you a glittery, gritty, full frontal glimpse into the world of boylesque. What is boylesque? We're going to find out. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a more is more kind of guy, a maximalist, if you will. I like putting a hat on a hat, a joke on a joke, and I would absolutely put a costume on my rescue cat and probably get a lot more Instagram followers if I wasn't scared that she'd rip my face off. And even though I would say I'm squarely a boylesque or male burlesque performer, the acts that I always find the most exciting are the ones that test and sometimes even refashion the boundaries of what we think burlesque is and create a performance that extends beyond the strip and the tease. And my guest today, in my humble opinion, is one such multifaceted creator. They are a performer, a producer, a teacher, a founding father, a fierce queen, a hater hugger, and the holder of multiple titles, including Mr. Oregon Gay United States 2012, and the winner of the 2013 Carribean Burlesque Festival, where they were declared Queen of the Island. Sometimes they give you a lip-syncing, heel-clinking, pole-climbing performance like you've never experienced. Other times, they take you to church. And by church, I mean the strip club. But whatever time of day it is, you better believe they are a 24-hour glamazon, baby. So please welcome to the Showboys stage, Isaiah Esquire.
Hello. I'm blushing already.
Well, you're absolutely deserving of all that and more. How are you doing tonight?
You know, honestly, I am navigating. I'm working through some frustration of ooh, it's show related, it is culture related, it is race related white nonsense that I'm all navigating that's pretty fresh. So I'm honestly coming off of a pretty a hot button moment.
Okay, all right. I hear that. Yeah. Well, hopefully this podcast is a cool, soothing balm that you can or a I don't know, a manageable period of
I'm
time.
feeling it. It's going to be a lovely solve. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
Okay, all right. I just saw, I think this was maybe released a while ago, but I think you were on a podcast. It's not it's not Daily Beans. It's
Ooh, it is my morning drip.
My Morning Drip. I was watching Private. I loved it. I know you're talking about some of those things on that too. So thanks for being here, bottom line, and making time for it. I really appreciate it. Well, let's just jump right in, shall we?
We shall.
Let's do it. I really truly mean, I think of you as a multifaceted performer. You work in Portland as your home base in the drag and burlesque scenes, as well as, I mean, nationally, internationally. I'm curious though, how do you think of your own aesthetic and approach to the stage? And for people who haven't been lucky enough to see you, what might they experience during an Isaiah Esquire performance?
Hmm. I guess it's hard. It's always been hard for me to describe my aesthetic and my type of performance because I'm not necessarily following a mold. I
Mhm.
am what people are experiencing is just kind of the intersection of what I've experienced in my life as a dancer. So as a dancer, and then and like in some the theater kid, and where drag, it's like it's an interesting way of expressing yourself that I never got through dance. And
Mhm.
so because dance, you're responding to the music, or you're expressing that sound, you are the director's instrument. And for drag, it feels like firsthand. It's what I'm personally saying. So it's like being in a musical, and there's this intense dialogue that happens to be set to music, and
Mhm.
that's how my drag kind of come together. So it's kind of all those things together. The only thing that you can bank on is having a lot of energy and authenticity
Yes.
in the performance, I say that I incorporate, dance and movement and contortion if I'm bendy enough in the moment. And my overall goal is just to express my art as authentically and clearly as I can and move that room in a place of service.
Yeah, when you say move it in a place of service, can you say more about that?
Yeah, I think that I've had lots of check-ins with myself and performance and art. It attracts a lot of narcissists. It attracts a lot of people that are working through trauma, and it's like this is the space that you feel celebrated and free and in control. But you're really vulnerable when you're sharing your art and your body. So we crave like such a vulnerable thing in that space. So how some folks get around that is they make it more about themselves and their art because they need healing. So they need a certain kind of validation and love from the audience to heal some of those things. I think it can be really healthy for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And I think that when I'm in my most grounded place, I think that I'm coming from like a place of service as everyone in that room is going through something. And a lot of folks that are like on the spectrum, and there's this unknowing and this anxiousness that exists in a lot of audiences. And some performers, we've all experienced this, can when they enter, when they perform, the room goes quiet in the place of stillness that the audience is able to relax because they know that that person has control in that moment, and
Hmm.
that can be like a gift to them, is just feel like, hey, I got you for this next 4 to 7 minutes. Just be with me here. And that kind of like escapism is really important and can be a gift. And so instead of like think of like how cool of a dance move I can be doing or how shiny my costume can be, my priority is that I want to express myself again authentically, and then in that space connect with somebody else and give them the opportunity to feel something different and to escape for at least a little amount of time, that they don't have to wonder and stress about anything, that everything is just contained for this little bit of time.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the most beautiful thing that's been said on this podcast thus far. I do joke often when I'm hosting shows that performers are all narcissists, especially myself. But I think ultimately, yeah, like on stage you want I mean, I know that I want to feel like I am giving something to the audience.
Mm.
Do you feel like when you make yourself available like that, do you feel like you are also being held by the audience at times?
I do. I feel that kind of just in a conversation I was trying to explain myself versus a different performer, and I feel that I have a very like conversational kind of energy, that
Mhm.
there is this kind of natural back and forth, and I know that that has been a service to a room. Like for example, I was in a show recently at Inferno Cabaret here in Portland, one of the longest running weekly cabarets and like on the West Coast. They're 20 years, and every single Sunday. And it just happened to be a quiet night. The room was quiet. The audience felt really far away. They were quiet, and as it was a smaller gathering of people. And I sent two different songs of which one I wanted to perform, and I assessed the room. And I was like, I could do this one. That's funny and that could be nice. But I was like, but they need power in this moment to wake them up. And so I picked the right number to then be able to like to move the room, and it got everybody up, and there was a dance party, and there was a whole thing that happened within that like 7 minutes that hadn't happened throughout that night up until then. And so I don't know. It's just like it's in that moment I feel held because I was like, I don't know if they're gonna get it's just Whitney Houston for the first 30 seconds. It's literally just drag for the first opening of the set. I haven't gone to any gimmicks. There's nothing else happening. It's a space that is like pole and fire and go-go dancers and contortionists and aerialists, etc. And then whatever the hell I am. And so usually I can get them because I'm dancing or all these different character work, but it was this 30 seconds of drag doing Whitney Houston, and seeing that the people come with excitement and run towards the stage was like, I felt seen, I felt held.
Hmm.
And it's a yeah, it's a lovely symbiotic relationship that each person is able, like each side is able like to get something from it. I guess I talk about the service and the ego part because I realize like as a dancer, the default is to do the trick, do the cool thing, to like show out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
like we've all seen it and like we all know it. And so I started to like realize that for me, sometimes I have to sacrifice my choreography for what that the room is needing in that moment. So then I was like, cool, actually I'm gonna not do this A count because this person just wants me to stand close to them for a second. This person needs to be pushed and pulled and making people uncomfortable because of my body and my gender expression and all the things in that. So I was like, you need a little more time to let this wash over you. So I'm gonna stand here for another second. And so
Yeah.
those are the kind of things like I will forego choreography if the space is needing it. Yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to do that at like a younger or a different part like of my career. I would have needed that anchor of like I'm the best dancer here. I did this. Look at my leg or something else. And that's just like that's not like in that space.
Yeah, I know for myself, it's really easy sometimes to get into my head, but I think that says so much about you as a performer because it is such a talent to really read the room. And again, I think everyone comes at it. I think most performers that I know that I work with are in service of the show or want the audience to enjoy themselves. And sometimes that is showing up and showing off to the audience and telling them this is the show you're going to get. Sometimes it's holding a breath with the audience so that they can breathe, maybe. I mean, I'm so impressed by performers like yourself who can really, well, first of all, forgo choreography because I'm like, I need every single count. So, but also like have that compassion for the audience because I think sometimes when people come to shows like a nightlife experience, they aren't expecting to be touched in that kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that important for me, like just all of my life journey has all been around service and trying to impact the world and as positive way, like as I can, as authentically as I can.
Hmm.
I'll use that word a lot because people be faking the funk and I'm not really interested in that. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm sour, sometimes I'm petty, sometimes I am tired, sometimes don't want to do the thing. Sometimes like I'm gonna feel all those things, but that I'm still trying to push out more good than bad authentically. And so like in shows, it was one I was trying to pick like which acts I was going to do. This just happened just a couple of days ago, and each of the characters in this particular show, the costumes are all like mostly black, and it's mostly like more like stripped down. But I was like, but I want them to know that I have these really shiny costumes. I have all these things too, and I'm never in this particular group of people very often, and they're going to think, you know what I mean, of all of that stuff that started coming up from ego. But these particular characters, you can't dress them up any other way, or it doesn't feel authentic to like that character. Because I'm detailed all the way down to like what color makeup goes with like certain characters, how I contour my nose changes from like different characters and things like that.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I can't sacrifice it just because I want to wear this shiny costume that I have in the bag because my ego wants them to know that I have shiny costumes.
You're a better person than me, but yeah, I hear that. Absolutely. On that note, I've actually really only, gotten to see you perform once when we were at Burlesque Hall of Fame years ago.
Yeah.
So, do you think of are your acts composed of multiple characters, or, and I guess also maybe as a follow-up, when you talk about showing up authentically, are there performers who especially inspire you, or that you think kind of had that authenticity?
I mean, if you're thinking about authenticity, I and burlesque and performance, I can't not think of Pearl Noire. Like
Absolutely, yeah.
there is no way she shows up exactly how she is, who she is, and channels every ancestral being and powerful thing through her. And you can tell that it's real. Like
Mm,
it feels accessible, even though you feel like I can't do that. I might not be able to ever feel what she's feeling, but you know that it is authentic of the place where she's coming from. So that's a great example to me. I'm honored to be able to bear witness to that human in this lifetime and to be close enough to her to ever tell her that directly.
yeah.
Um, but all of the characters are they're so different. I confuse the hell out of people, and it's one of my favorite things
Uh-huh.
because I used to be in like an insult that someone would see like one of my performances and they would assume that was all that I did. And it was an insult until I feel it's a compliment now. It means that like I'm convincing enough in that role, like that you can't imagine me doing anything different.
Hmm.
And if I do that enough, then people finally get that that I am a multifaceted, being with a lot of different energies and things that I can pull from. But until then, they're just really confused by me, and I like that. So yeah, if I am like I do a lot of the act for Beehoff, the main song that's it's Kevin Aviance, rhythm is my bitch.
Yes.
Kevin Aviance he's a legend. He's an icon, a mover shaker, and now thanks to Beyonce, he's trending again. So more people like know, but that album is 1999. It came into my life in a cool way. When he was headlining Portland Pride around 2008 or 2009. And I was there, and another Black community leader that had put it together was like, you have to meet Kevin Aviance, you have to know. And he was telling me and informing me. So then I was looking at videos of Kevin Aviance because of this connection. And I got a chance to meet Kevin Aviance at a club afterwards. And they're like, hey, this is Isaiah. He was like, oh, so you're Isaiah. You're the one that people have been calling me all day. And I was like, because in Portland, if you're a big, bald Black man in heels, you must be me. You know what I mean? And so that was like a thing. So like he like exists in all of his aesthetic and how he exists like in the world isn't something that I modeled myself after, because it came after I was already in the development parts of my person. But he is still an inspiration, though I'm not necessarily trying to follow in his footsteps. I guess the best way I can say it. But for
Yeah.
someone like looking at how they exist in the world is something that I would like aspire to in some way, like for sure. And so me lip syncing his music on stage is because his deep, really expressive voice, it's deep and it's sassy, and it's so opulent. So
Mhm.
that sits in a certain way in my body and my shoulders, and then that dictates what kind of fabric I want to be wearing in that dictates what kind of makeup I'll be wanting to do with that, to embody that sound and how that character feels. That's just like an example of like it makes sense when I do. Like if I hear a Kevin Aviance song, there's a certain thing I knew, the energy I wanted. That act is called Glitter Apocalypse.
Yeah.
That's what I call that act, because it's shiny, it's all the silver, it's like this alien deity thing, and his voice is the only way that made sense together.
Yeah, I love that you said all that. There's a video of Kevin Aviance that I've actually shown to students of mine where he's performing. I think it's maybe at Splash. It's at some club that, no longer
Yeah.
exists in New York. And I love that you said opulence because there is something about the way that he moves, and he doesn't wear a lot usually, but it
Hmm.
feels so rich. And
Yep.
like it's like, a piece of material like stretched around his beautiful body, but yeah, there's just like this luxuriousness, and it is just like the energy and the way that he lives in his body in those moments.
Exactly. And so for me, like it's more kindred. It's different than like seeing it and copying that, which is helpful for a lot of people. For me, I was literally doing this thing, and then I'm in my heels, bald up here, it's like dancing around Prize in Portland, and then there's a person on stage that you know what I mean, that we could literally be like a doppelganger like at this time for a lot of people. And that was like the coolest thing in the world. So I was finding out more and more, and I was like, oh, when I'm wanting this particular character, when I needed to feel this way in my body, and where my masculinity and my femininity and my queerness and my otherness all kind of intersects.
Hmm.
Not all voices match what I am trying to give. So that's how I picking music that feels big enough
Mm.
for me.
Yeah.
So like I was in a show, and I love Patsy Cline, but I can't me lip syncing Patsy Cline ends up looking weird because the voice sounds softer and smaller, versus if I'm lip syncing some of the other characters of my favorite jazz vocalist. You hear the timbre of their voice somehow matches what I'm, you know what I mean? So it matches what I can give.
Yeah.
So I can't do thin voices. I don't really do like super light things unless it's like a monologue. That's it, like you're watching it, and the like juxtaposition doesn't feel, it's just not my brand.
Sure, I hear that. Yeah. Well, I mean, you have such a light, high voice, it's I can see why you'd want to use like a deep, deep voice to lip sync to.
Obviously, obviously.
So I want to talk about BOYeurism, your long-standing show. Before we get into that, though, you were also a founder and member of the all-male troupe in Portland called Burlesquire. And I just watched a very steamy performance you shared with me to the song Closer by Nine Inch Nails. Was this where you started to incorporate burlesque, or where did the strip and the tease start to enter into your performance?
Yeah, honestly, Burlesquire was founded in 2007. I was the last member asked to participate in like in this group. I had just turned 21, and a friend of mine, it was all like color guard people. It was all color guard people, and a friend who was security guard, and he at a Portland queer club called Red Cab Garage, and he wanted to do an all-male troupe, but he wanted to be kind of like the Pussycat Dolls, but better dancers, is what he said. He wanted a male version, but all really strong dancers,
Uh-huh.
similar to the Pussycat Dolls. And so he'd gotten some of his other friends and members together from Color Guard and other male dancers, and they were going to be meeting and having a meeting to decide on if this troupe was going to be a thing. And I had just met them through a mutual friend of mine. And so they're like, hey, we're having a meeting. You should come to this rehearsal thing. So I came to it, and then we sat down and we talked through names. And then we set up a rehearsal, and choreographed Closer was the very first routine that we ever did. It happened to be a group of all biblical names. So we have Isaiah, Ezekiel, Matthew, David, Michael, and Matthew. Sorry, I said Matthew already. And those were the founding members, basically.
Was the Bible was the Bible purposeful, or did you just realize that you all?
It literally it just happened. Like we were sitting all around, and there was Kaylin and Mignon, were part of it. They were the only two like that weren't biblical names, but the core group, because there was like five or six of us when we first started, and then only three of us really stuck it out, which was myself, Ezekiel, and Matthew. We all took on Esquire as our last names. We would all be whoever Esquire of Burlesquire. So that's how I have Isaiah Esquire.
Yes.
And so we did the thing, and we kept performing, and it was a thing. People liked it, enjoyed it. We were performing in some drag clubs and queer spaces, because it's the only thing that you do when you're a cis male queer person. And while one of the performances, the manager of the Rose City Sirens, which is our neo punk queer femme performance art troupe, they're all of those things. It's really important to put them all together.
Yes.
You were definitely getting performance art, like in those spaces with the electrical tape and all the Portishead you could ever imagine, and and all of that. And they saw us perform and said, "Hey, we love y'all. Y'all have to perform at our show in a couple months." And so we agreed, and we performed in their show that December, and in our only like lesbian club, like femme ran, lesbian ran, queer and trans male space. And so we were the only cis men in there.
Hmm.
So it was like 400 femmes and like in trans men, and then us. And we performed and had a good time, and then we just kept performing more burlesque spaces from there. But it was our first introduction to that audience. We were all dancers. We were all dancers and off like coaches and dance teachers when we were like off, and wanted to not have to do the same PG-13, PG or G rated things that we're already having to produce. So we wanted to be able to be as sexy or as sexy, erotic, or beautiful as we wanted to, and that was what attracted us all to the group, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, and the video you shared with me is extremely sexy. Also, I mean, you don't strip completely to like thongs
Mm.
or jock straps, but it's I mean it's very erotic. You're all very present. What was the reaction to from that audience at that show?
Standing ovations, because I choreographed an opening number and a closing number. So I choreographed the opening and a closing number with the Rose City Sirens. So we had two there, and then Burlesquire performed. Let's see, I did Whatever You Like was my other piece that I set, and Matthew did The Boys Want to Be Her.
Oh, I love that song.
Uh-huh. And so yeah, so we performed four times all or like five times altogether throughout that show, and people freaked out and they loved it, and we were welcomed into that space. So then we would perform there every third Saturday. We would perform two acts and go-go. So we were also the only cis male go-go's in the space, and we would all go there and perform there. So yeah, so it was nice like that our introduction into spaces and into burlesque in general was femme-centered and
Hmm.
queer femme like centered. So we were always a welcome guest
Yeah.
versus that like man spreading thing that is so common with cis men. We can just kind of take over anything naturally. So yeah, it was dope, and they loved us and they welcomed us, and then we kept connecting with more and more people like Charlotte Trues and all these other like folks that were like really good friends, and seeing more of the feathers and the rhinestones and the boas, because that was a different side of burlesque than what was like the punk rock grunge thing like the that I came through, which is more about what you were saying versus what you were wearing. And I'm very grateful for that. The rhinestones and things were a lot less important for the like development part for me than the space.
Yeah, definitely. Can you talk about then what was the transition or how did you go from that style of movement into your show BOYeurism, which for those people who don't know is a bi-monthly show in Portland. It's been running for over 10 years, which is an incredible feat. Congratulations. What was the evolution of that like for you? And what was the inspiration for the show?
Well, after half of the troupe had, disappeared and done some things, we were it was after we got scouted for America's Got Talent the first time. We did the producer audition thing, and I did the phone interview and answered all the questions and all that. And then right before that, that particular iteration of the group, everybody canceled, and so everybody backed out. Ezekiel was in Japan, and so he was like, I would love to do it, but he wasn't like in the country. And then the other members at the time backed out. One is a singer and was convinced that if they were seen on the show like with me or like in the super queer space, and it would like damage their career. One is another dance teacher and said that with me dancing in heels, then we would end up on a blooper reel, and that they couldn't risk that. And so the whole troop kind of like backed out. And so we just kind of dwindled down a little bit more and more. Matthew moved away. And so Ezekiel and I were the main ones who were still going forward. So we choreographed some of our like iconic like duo things and kind of focused on that energy for a while.
Hmm.
And we just kept being some movers and shakers in town and started performing at Dante's. And Inferno is the only out queer male representation in that space, which is definitely like it was all like Suicide Girls, like that was like the vibe. What they wanted,
Yes.
all they wanted was like with skinny tattooed white girls. They were here for it, but and like they used to literally like boo if they were announcing male performers like to the stage.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh. Like, and it wasn't even personal. Like, it was before they saw you. They would literally just start booing if the MC said, "And bringing up these fellas or this man or this thing." They would just start booing. It was wild.
Yeah, that is wild. Just to go back for a sec, so did you end up going through with the America's Got Talent for yourself then? Because I know you performed on it, but
Yeah. Well, see, for that one, by once everyone had backed out, they said that I could audition by myself. They wanted me to audition by myself, but I couldn't change the music because they had already cleared all of like the music that was in our mix. And I couldn't do that as a soloist. It didn't make any sense. So I didn't do that one. And they scouted us again when Ezekiel was back in town, and we did the audition. Kinda. It was like last minute. But the music director did remember me, and that was kind of cool. Like when I walked in, he was like, "Yeah, you're from Burlesquire." Like he either remembered our name or something, but he remembered me, and I was like, "That was so crazy." And then when for Caravan of Glam, an all queer cabaret that went to all conservative America, so we would go to different parts of Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Alaska, etc. We were kind of like the inspiration for We're Here, in the sense of like that's the work that we were doing. And we were in the talks of doing a reality TV show with HBO, and then that happened. But anyway, so we were on. So we did America's Got Talent as that troupe. It was myself, my husband Johnny Nuriel, Jayla Rose from Lizzo, Watch Out for the Big Girls, and Ecstasy Inferno, and put together a troupe. Johnny did aerial chain and fire hoop. Jayla was tumbling and dancing. Ecstasy was singing live, and I was dancing.
yeah, no big deal. That's That's amazing.
In 90 seconds. Like we wanted all of that in 90 seconds. They wanted me in heels, they wanted twerking, they wanted fire, they wanted aerial, they wanted Jayla flipping. So we gave them all that in 90 seconds.
That's insane. And then I feel like, and then they like in the same lineup, they're like, and now please welcome the Ukrainian Children's Choir as they sing an a cappella version of Cher's "Do You Believe in Life After Love?" Like,
Right.
it's so insane.
Well, like they also just had they wanted to frame it like in this drag space in this certain way that was so different than like what we were. We were like variety, cabaret with all these different disciplines. There's
Hmm.
only one drag queen in the group, actually.
Yeah.
They had like drag queen, trans woman, and then whatever Jai and I are. But they had a lot like a different narrative, so we didn't end up going through with that with one. We got through that round, but then we told them no to signing the contract. But yeah, so Ezekiel and I did our own thing, bouncing around, trying to make a name for ourselves and performing in spaces like Inferno. And we were approached about asking if we could kind of create like a male version of that show. Like, what would that look like? And so we created BOYeurism. Miss Angelique DeVille came up, helped us come up with the name. She was our first MC for the show in 2013. And yeah, and it was just a space for like incredible male entertainers to get together because there were so few of them. And we're lucky that in this space that it is a femme dominant, femme ran space,
Hmm.
which I think is really, really amazing. And so these were like the other people who weren't in shows, basically. So we got a whole bunch of really talented people together, and people liked it, and the people in the community really enjoyed how it gave them something to like aspire to or like incentivize them, like they could get like creative ideas and stuff like that. So that's why we had all industry people that would come to the show. And that was like the coolest like compliment. That's kind of where that show started, which is how Johnny and I met.
I guess this is a good transition into my next question because I think when people hear all male show, or I know when I've been approached to do like an all male striptease show or something like that, a lot of the times producers, bar managers have a very specific idea of what that looks like, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
basically like the Pussycat Dolls, but male presenting performers. And
Absolutely.
and I actually have not seen a Boyerism show, but I have seen you and Johnny perform, and I've seen your lineups, and I think you really, again, completely reshape what an all, male presenting show looks like, which is just to say, I've asked a lot of performers on my podcast how they interpret masculinity on stage, whether they feel like they subvert it, they celebrate it. What do you feel like you do with it? And I guess maybe gender in general in your performances.
Hmm. Gender is really important to a lot of people,
Hmm.
and it's really not for some others. I say that when we needed to be filling the ask for our community was to have this all male show. It didn't have to be cis men. It was all male energy, male focused thing, whether that is in the whose music, like the voices that you're hearing, like all being like male artists or whatever that was the ask of the community at the time.
Hmm.
And then some other people had some male review things that like started moving, and this wasn't necessary for us to hold that space.
Hmm.
And even like on our stage, there were also people that present and identify however they identify has always been like welcomed by us, because I don't feel that I have any ownership of like of gender and anyone's like expression of it. It's such a hmm, this is a big question for me. This is a big one. Yeah, so I don't want to police anyone else's like expression in that when it comes to our casting. And so we did that. We're like, why do you have a trans woman in the show Boyerism? I was like, because they felt comfortable being a part of the show with it being titled this, and knowing that it was a mere review and how their art, expresses and what journeys like they have lived,
Hmm.
etc. And so it was like say less. Why are you even having the question about it? or getting like the first emails like, why are there so many boobs on your stage? I came to see all male. Like that was actual messages like
Yeah.
that we got because they were so scared of like of that. And so for me, my journey about like my expression of it is I got to this place in my person by wanting to honor all of me. And that is all of my masculine, all of my feminine, and just the fact that like there's this I barely feel human. I always felt like I was some kind of weird alien cyborg thing. And so why would I try to limit myself? I think that that creates a lot of like internal struggle
Hmm.
and makes people so angry and so sad and so like limited, and that just wasn't my thing. And so my way of like kind of channeling or like challenging my internalized homophobia was to present myself in more femme ways and more like queer ways
Hmm.
because it was not how I wanted to be seen. And I was like, let's look into that. Why is that? Why do I feel more comfortable because I am less effeminate than this other person? Why do I feel like this and do I feel like that makes me better and somehow? Am I closer to quote normal? All that weird stuff. So I just started literally putting myself out there in ways that was uncomfortable for me so that I wouldn't other people's opinion of me and view of me wasn't what I was putting the most like currency and weight in.
Sure.
So that was the kind of shit that I was doing. I was just like, let's just do this thing. They're gonna look at me and think that I'm that kind of gay. What if I was? You know what I'm saying? Like they don't need to know. I don't get a chance to explain it. I like they just see this thing and that's it. And I just let them have that idea of me. That it ended up being really powerful for me to be able to just like leave it there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh, there's so much there. I think especially because you started Boyerism, sorry,
2013. Yeah,
2013, right? And I know now, like, especially maybe partly through shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, and also I think just how nightlife, at least I know in New York City, has evolved. That this idea of, I mean, gender bending even feels like a dated term.
for sure, for sure.
All that to say, like, I think audiences, for whatever, like they're more comfortable with this idea of performers who aren't presenting in one form. But for you to do that like 10 years ago, or for any performer to do that 10 years ago, really is taking risks. Because I think a lot of times human beings want to be able to identify something. Like there's always this need to be able to classify, to
Yeah.
structure. As much as like as comforting, I know I have to resist that, and that I also play into it a lot too. But I don't know. I think that again says a lot about you as a performer, and also like what's the point in limiting oneself anyway, right? Like,
Like honestly, it was like, and I remember having the like conversations with myself that I was the freest, I was the most confident when I was honoring everything because I was teaching heels. I always had like a heel fetish. Heels made me feel powerful, just like the sound of them watching real sex, like as a kid, and like when the heel fetish, I was like, oh my god, that, and it made me feel like strong. And so my what I associate with femininity was always like in like perseverance and strength and power and and wisdom and all things strong. And so I didn't really make sense to me to be like in this male form like denying and running
mhm.
away from these qualities. Like that was such a weird thing to me. So I was like, well fuck all that. So I didn't, so I just like I stopped doing that. And I don't know, I just feel like people are going to not like you no matter what you do, and you don't have any say over whether they really accept you or not. So why are
Mhm.
you putting why are we putting so much energy into trying to control and shape other people's perception of us? And it was exhausting, and I wasn't going to do that anymore. So I was wearing all like I started gay as hell. I was wearing all my tight ass pants and all my random stuff and my shirt. If I like lifted my hands up, I had to be able to like show my belly button. It was I went through a journey, but it was because
Yes.
like I just wanted to be able to like express myself like freely and be able to honor all of the divine energies that are coming through me. And so but it was really confusing for a lot of people. Lord knows, because I mean, I just used to go into all the like dance battles and stuff, like all the break dancing and crumping battles, and I would be in there dancing in heels. Like 15, yeah, like this when I was even younger, just in there in heels, tearing up the like dance floor and battling people that were like breakdancing and crumping and stuff. And I was the only one in the heels in the space, but it made me so powerful, and so that's what I wanted to be able like to bring to it. And I wore heels to my like winter formals and stuff like in high school.
Uh-huh.
Like full like like slacks, dress shirt, everything else, and then just a pair of heels because I wanted to. I did that from like sophomore year on. So in drag spaces when I was started like performing, they're like, well, I don't want to like book you. Like, why are you doing half drag? Why are you doing a lazy drag? And so they were trying to read me for that because they thought that I was putting forth less effort. And
Mhm.
then burlesque spaces were like, are you wearing heels or doing any of that? Even for those like titles like that I won for Mr. Gay Pride, you couldn't wear like the male titles, like you couldn't wear certain kind of makeup and you couldn't wear heels like in dresses and stuff. Like as Mr. Gay Pride. And I was like, what are you talking about? That makes no sense. I'm going to do that because that's part of my aesthetic. That's what I want to be doing. They're like, all right, we don't know how you feel about it. And then I did that was the same thing for Miss Gay, Oregon, US of A. And I was also the first Mr. Northwest Fierce.
Mhm.
And that was another one. Same thing. People are like all up in arms. They're like, well, shouldn't you be running for the drag queen title? You have all this makeup on and you wear heels. And I was like, no, I'm a man. I identify as a man. I'm literally lip syncing a male voice. If that helps you in some way understand my expression. But there's also no gender play because I'm literally embodying another male voice. It was a whole thing. So that's kind of been like my entire journey of like the pushback of it. Because I didn't fit, because it still wasn't drag, it still wasn't this, it still wasn't that. But those are the same reasons why people book me now. It's why I'm on a short list of people that people think of when they're wanting to stretch something or something a little extra or something a little
Mhm.
different or something radically queer. And I was like, y'all are catching up. I was done. Like this part has been here.
Yeah, and also it is just so ridiculous to me. Like as queer people, nightlife is supposed to be like a sanctuary for us, and yet, and again, I have caught myself doing this many times, like trying to fit this, like what is very much just this heteronormative approach to performance, to gender, to making sure like we fit inside, many times these like stupid gay roles. Yeah, it's just it's a waste of time.
It's wild and it's limiting. It is boring. It's violent. I mean, honestly, it's like, yeah, I just wasn't going to like do that. I also thought that I was trans for like a lot of my like time growing up, and so it brought up a lot of questions like about identity and like and gender and how I feel versus my expectation in the world.
Hmm.
So for me, I feel free, like I'm a man, and like within me being a man and identifying like as a cis, like being a cis man, that I still have the freedom to do all the things. I can wear all the dresses, I can wear the makeup, I can do all the things, I can express all this, I can be soft and gentle and strong and wise and all the beautiful things that I associate with femininity. I can do all that and still fit within the parameters of what man means to me.
Yeah.
So like it really, really easily, like it's not a stretch for me.
Mhm.
Like all this feels like I feel, and that was part of the character too. I realized that I was more masculine than I had a masculine default. I didn't realize. I always felt that I was like more feminine, like in my being. I felt that all my life, you know?
Mhm.
And then when I was performing it on stage, I was teaching these heel classes and I was performing all these femme characters, and then I would be done, I would run out. So I would go to like do my heels routine on Tuesday night. And I was like, I have no feminine energy to be able to even to choreograph this. I can't perform it. And I was like, oh, I have a certain amount of these different energies. And when I'm done, it's like performing
Mhm.
and performing for other people, I'm left with what? And
Right.
mine ended up being like a lot more masculine. I was really amazed by that. But wearing every dress and every heel and pump and giving you and channeling every strong feminine character like that I knew made me feel the most masculine in my person.
There's this great quote from Ursula K. Le Guin. She's talking about utopia and she's using the yin yang symbol to kind of
Mhm.
illustrate it. And she's saying that, and again, she's not the first person to say this, but she's talking about how these energies, if you want to think of them as masculine and feminine, they are interdependent and they're intermutable. They're constantly becoming each other,
Yeah.
And I think that's true
Yeah.
of everybody when we allow that to happen.
I fully agree because that's why I've been welcome. I've been asked to be in a lot of spaces like that people for folks are putting on like events for non-binary folks and for again for trans folks like and invite me to that space because they assume because of how I exist in the world. and it's a
Mhm.
beautiful conversation, like we had like, this is where I fall, this is how this feels like to me. With that information, do you feel that I am appropriate to be in this space with you or not?
Sure.
I was like, we are like-minded.
Mhm.
And we view this, you know what I mean, and like in a less binary way. But then like if I'm welcome to be in that space or not. And so it is a compliment. I love that when people are thinking of other energy and otherness,
Mhm.
that I exist in this place of otherness. And that for me is a compliment, and it's like a pat on the back for me, and I'm proud of it because that means I spent less time trying to assimilate and more times trying to be true to myself, do what felt good, present what feels good, or being in a show and they're like, everybody's doing really light stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna do this like gut wrenching emotional. Everyone is going to be crying and I'm going to be a complete mess. Like, let's do that,
Right.
and to be able to like make those kind of choices, that when you think of otherness, to have that be associated with me. And it was powerful to connect with Johnny Nuriel, because there's no other way that I can really explain him. He's is this extra, this extraterrestrial other like deity energy, and so we're kindred like in that way, and it's really incredible that we happen to come together in that. It's cool being a part of otherness. Like I love that. Like there was another like an all femme event, all women for it, everything. And they're like, "Can you come and do this? Can you perform? Can you host? Can you be in this space? Can you teach a workshop?" I was like, "Are you sure? Like, is this a welcome?" And like in that space, and I love that in super masculine spaces. That they want all that's typical certain kind of man energy, and say, "Hey, can you come and bring your your vibe?" And I feel like we're all of that kind of come together, which is why I feel like the energy is able to like to transcend. I feel like I'm performing in a whole other like stratosphere.
I was just thinking as you were talking about Johnny, I remember watching them perform at the New York Burlesque Festival years ago. And there, I mean, I think both of you have this like gorgeous otherworldly quality where like you just from the moment you step foot on stage, the audience is just enraptured by you. Yeah, I don't know. There's just a moment where I think Johnny like broke out these fans and the way he used them, like everyone was like, whoa. Like,
I remember that
you know what I'm
exact
talking about?
moment. I do, because he was right before Medianoche or right after. They were put right back to back, and I remember it was the Sunday show. It was the one at Highline. I remember all of it.
Yes.
I remember all of it, and I remember the moment because you could hear, because they had seen some Veil fans. But Johnny is like, he's just this like airbender, and he was also, I was seeing him doing Veil fans like before I was seeing it being really popular like within burlesque. That was a part of his. Um,
Hmm.
and Johnny's journey is different because he was doing burlesque before he knew that he was doing burlesque.
Sure.
And so it's different. He didn't go like to a burlesque show and then start to emulate anything. He was literally like working in a aerial club as an aerialist and doing stage and aerial sets. And it was burlesque as fuck. Like that was the only way like to describe what he was doing. And so the Veil fans there, and I remember seeing other people use them. I was like, this is great, but there's something different when he does it for some reason. But I remember being in the room and you could felt everybody take this gasp of like, and space, and that's cool to be able to witness people that are able to draw you into some of those spaces, because everyone feels like, I don't know, it feels like there's more options. You know what I mean? Like you're watching somebody on the stage, you're like, all of a sudden I feel like there's more options for me and for other people, and I can't understand, I can't articulate it, but that's the best way that it feels.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you were saying at the beginning of this interview that you hold space on stage as a performer and you offer something up to the audience that again I don't think most people even consider that they might be receiving when they buy a ticket to, a burlesque show or whatever, or
Yeah,
an all male show, right?
yeah.
Um, and it's I mean that is such a talent. That's so unique to you and to Johnny as well to be able to like flip people's perspectives. And I mean, lots of performers do that. It's just I don't know. It's something that like makes me really emotional when I think about burlesque because it like I love the glitter and I love the sequins and I love being, like funny and cute and catty on the mic, but like there are those moments of levity that I like surprise me too. And it's just such a reminder, like, what a gift it is to be able to be in these spaces and, share that with people.
Agreed. Like agreed. Like it's so powerful, like, and so beautiful. I think that all of burlesque feels like you're at like a summer camp or something, you know what I mean? In the sense of like you create these really intense bonds so quickly with people,
Yes.
and they mean so much to you, but you saw them at one festival, you know what I mean, like 5, 6 years ago. But like it's such a significant thing again because we're so vulnerable while you're sharing your art and your body and being so open. And just for like one of the last BOYeurism, we had Rudy and Margot, and they were phenomenal. And I was gonna go for like a fun act for my solo because we do a duo to open. Johnny closes first act, I open second. We usually close the show depending unless the headliner has a super like energetic act or something. And I was gonna have fun, but I was like I was so stressed from all of what I was holding up.
Hmm.
I was coordinating for like the for Pride Northwest, and because I'm the like diversity and equity and booker for Inferno in addition to the other things I was doing. So there were so many things I was doing for that weekend. I was like, I'm stressed and I don't want to just do this fun character. I need to do something that is a little more emotionally charged. And so
Hmm.
I did this act. It's the only second time I've ever got a chance to perform it. It's brand new. It's just open-ended. There's not a lot of, like space set for it. And I was like able to do that with the audience and then just cry.
Hmm.
And just cry, and people cry in the audience, and then we talk about the fact that like that we were crying. And I was like, that felt like such a gift. And I think that some of us take the stage and connection for granted, and let our egos take up too much residency, too much space.
Yeah. So maybe shifting into the Portland scene for a moment. I'm sure you know it has a rich history of stripping. It currently has the most strip clubs per capita, which is more than twice than it has public restrooms.
Yep.
I don't know okay. How would you describe the scene in 3 words?
Ooh. Well, I can use some of the words that other folks have been coming through town and visiting of why they come to Portland
Hmm.
for it. And it's been they feel inspired, they feel charged by the like creativity. So creative and let's see, creative, inspiring, weird. We're strange people. I mean, like that is the quote is keep Portland weird. And I think that the weirdness is what allows for that kind of creativity, like in space. People are just you don't have to fit into a ton of boxes. You just figure out whatever the hell you do and do that well, and then you're gonna find some people that like it.
I saw Portland when I was a child with my family, and all I remember is like a Saturday market where I think I bought a sculpture of my face. Again, narcissist.
Yes.
But so I want to come back and experience it as an adult. I have a few more questions here. I know you've been talking about numbers and characters. Do you have an act right now that you're performing that feels right in the moment for you, or that has significant resonance for you right now?
Yeah, it's the one that I did at BOYeurism. It's a couple songs by the artist Samo.
Hmm.
Um, and it's about for me, it's about I don't even did I even title this? I think I finally found a title for this act, but it's all about transcendence and or ascending, if that's what it's called. I call this one as it's ascending. And it's cathartic and it feels like therapy every time. I can't just do it, throw it on any stage for
Sure.
sure. It's not that it's one of the ones that has like to be like the right container,
Hmm.
but it feels good because I'm able to be free and feel like a dancer more than a performer, and I sometimes need that. Yeah. There's a story of like a lot of dancers, a lot of like queens you see, and both performers and other people that used to be dancers that used to dance. I've heard that a lot. And I realized that my ego doesn't want to have that to make that statement anytime soon. I don't want to be a former dancer. I don't want to say that I used to do the thing.
Sure.
And so I'm comfortable with the fact that I can get like on any stage and like move the energy in the room and be able to express something in a way that people can understand and download like what I'm trying to get across to them. And I'm very
Hmm.
proud of that. And that's wasn't easy to come by. But because I that muscle feels strong and I'm able to act to utilize it more, it feels really nice at moments when I'm able to just feel like a dancer and my physical and my emotional is able to like come together with like as not as many like filters and space and boundaries, I guess. That's feeling really, really good for me right now.
That sounds great. What's the costume?
It's seeing that this is not even really, really set. I borrowed part of Johnny's costume once. Johnny makes all of our costumes, or at least like 90% of them. But it's blue, like it's a sound. Like when I heard the song, both of them, it's a song, it's called Moving On, and the other one's called King God. And I was like, it's blue. It has to be blue. And it's just these different hues of blue and movement. It doesn't even have the right costume yet. It's so fresh. But
Hmm.
it is. It feels like this random little deity alien being that's just dropped into a space. Um, and they're like communicating to where they used to be. That's the best way I can kind of like explain that current thing. So I have no idea. But that one feels really, I'm excited to figure out like who she is and like where that thing lies. After just an energy of like one of my favorite acts to perform, probably the one that I competed with, Glitter Apocalypse is one of I like being my introduction to people. Like if they're gonna see me perform for the first time in a burlesque space, I like that to be the one because I feel like it's the most me. Like
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm not hiding anywhere in that set at all in any way, shape, or form. I'm not pretending. You know what I mean? I'm not assimilating. It's just like it is just me. So that feels really good in that, and that they're kind of different. That one's a lived-in character. I know exactly how it walks, how it feels, and it's all power. And this other one feels vulnerable and like exploratory.
Huh. Well, I hope to be able to see it in person at some point. What's coming up next for you, Isaiah Esquire, and where can people find you?
Well, my plan is to take over the world and make everybody be nice to one another and that's really it. I'm just kind of just keep expanding. My goals for BOYeurism is to get it into we have this beautiful theater here and we've got a chance to perform on that stage in many other spaces, but I want it to be with our brand forward. So focusing on doing that and what are we doing? We're doing Canada. We're doing a lot of stuff. I'm just going to be places. I'm going to be places and doing things. I don't really know which one to direct energy towards in the moment, but a lot of stuff. I mean, we have something on the books every weekend until November, and things booked all the way until next spring. So there's things to be coming, I guess.
Yes. Well, I will make sure to tag your Instagram account, any other links you want people to
Yes,
follow up
please.
with. Yes.
Yes, please. I need everybody and their mama to tell anybody that you know in Portland to come to BOYeurism because the social media is really do be trying to shadow ban people and trying to hide post. And it's an incredible show. And not just because of like the artists like that you see on stage, but the container is what we're the most proud of. Like people arrive early to the show. The show starts at 9 o'clock, 7:30 doors, but people show up at 7 o'clock on the dot, even if they bought tickets just so they can be in the space, so people can commune and talk and stuff for an hour and a half before the show. And that's what we're proud of, that people want to show up and like and hug us and do all that. So I want more people to continue to know about that. And yeah, I'm trying to get back to doing some social media. We're teaching online at
Mhm.
the tour online. We've done some live streams. We're doing some other like things for them. That's an amazing thing. So we're just around. I don't really know where to direct directly because I'm a hermit, and so I kind of hide. And that also includes from like social media sometimes, which is kind of the space I'm in the moment. So
I hear you. I'll make sure to tag all the links.
yeah, so like forgive how awkward and small I got with the end of this particular interview. Uh,
No, not at all. Can I actually ask you one more question?
yeah, absolutely.
So you've done a lot of pageants and competitions. What is a typical pageant question and how do you answer it?
Ooh. I mean, the typical one, like one of the most typical ones that happen often is, what kind of fruit would you be and why? It's
Oh
really
my God.
common. It's so silly, but they ask it a lot to throw you off. Or, why, what does this title mean to you, and why would you be a good representation for this title?
Sure.
First is like, good evening, to the distinguished panels of judges. I am contestant number one for excellent title, and the question that I was asked was, why would I be the an appropriate person to handle this title and to represent it? And I feel that I would be the right person for the job because of my commitment to community and to love and to uplifting. The fact that I am, an open door, that I will always receive new information and I will always give freely. And at the end of the day, that I want more for the collective than I want for myself. And because of that, I think that I would be a great person to represent this title. Thank you all, contestant number one.
Oh my God. Give Isaiah Esquire all the titles and all the money. What kind of fruit are you?
Ooh, and see, I always said that I was a kiwi because I was like, I was like kind of hard to figure out in the sense of like when the outside of it versus like what's on the inside. So I used to that was my answer. That was a kiwi.
Hard to peel, but a juicy, juicy sweet.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I know. All right, Isaiah Esquire, it is such a pleasure to see you, to catch up with you. I know I mentioned it briefly. I've been at Burlesque Hall of Fame several years, but my favorite time performing and competing was when it was with you and Johnny and Joshua Dean, and I think there was one more person as well.
Paris.
Paris original.
Yeah.
Just hanging out and chatting with you all backstage. It was truly my favorite memory. And you're also just an incredible person and performer, and I'm so happy to be able to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I was honored when you messaged. I was like, oh my God. And it feels good to feel seen because I feel like we all feel like so othered and can get all weird and awkward. And so I feel, that I've been honored in some really beautiful ways. And I still feel kind of on the outskirts of my own little way. And so it meant a lot that you were also curious to hear my voice in any of my journey. So
I'm curious, baby. I have more
yeah.
questions, but I'm gonna save them
Yeah.
for season two.
Well, I've totally forgot the burlesque documentary Heart of the Glitter Tribe. It's not on Amazon. It was on We were on Netflix for a couple years, but it's on Prime and stuff like that too. So that's a thing that I'm talking about.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, I will also make sure to tag Heart of the Glitter Tribe as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Showboys. Again, we are wrapping up season one shortly at the end of August. So make sure you catch up on all the episodes, like, subscribe, review, flatter my ego, but then also come to the shows because I promise I will give you a beautiful gift as well. um, and that's all I have to say. So we'll see you next time. Bye bye. You want to say bye?
Bye. No, wait. Thank you all for listening, and we hope that these words all land in really special places for you. And we will catch you around next time.
Oh my God, I'm giving you the title King of Showboys, or Queen, whichever you prefer. Thank you for listening to Showboys. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you didn't like it,
You are a whore, darling.